Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Board Game Specialists. I'm Carla,
And I'm Melanie.
and today we are going to talk about our top nine dice games. Now, we've already talked about our top nine small dice games, but before we do that, what have you been playing lately, Melanie?
Last time I mentioned that I was having some friends over and we were going to be playing a game and I wasn't sure if it was going to be Orleans, if it was going to be Terra Mystica. And actually, we ended up playing Terra Mystica. And it was so good. And it was funny. We're setting up the game and I'm playing with Lyle and Nick. And then Lyle's like, "Oh, yeah." He said, "I think I sold my copy of this game." I was like, "Yeah, you did. It's right here." It's like we're playing with his copy. And he's like, "Oh, right." But it was so good. And I was intimidated. I bought it in February and everybody's like, "Oh, that's such a big game. Oh, that's such a big game." And I was intimidated to kind of get playing it. And then we got playing it and it was not bad. And it was good. And honestly, it reminds me of Catan taken to the next level. But you
Yeah.
have your own player board. You have all these different little buildings you can build. So you have all your dwellings, and then from the dwelling, you can upgrade them into a city. And then with the city, you could upgrade them into a stronghold, or you could upgrade it into a temple. And then the temple can be upgraded into a sanctuary. And each one of those, like some of them will start giving you special abilities, but it's kind of when you lift a building off your board, whatever's underneath is what you've unlocked. Now, when you upgrade it, so let's say I go from a dwelling and I go upgrade it to a city, so then now the dwelling comes back and it covers up that space again. So I lose the worker that I would collect each round, but then I get the benefit of what's underneath the city. And then the stronghold is the same thing. So like your benefits change as you play these different things. And then depending on the character that you're playing as or the clan you're playing as, it'll give you kind of different abilities as well. But you also have to terraform the map because you have the map with all these different terrains, and each clan has to build on a specific terrain. So I had to build on like the dark gray one. And then, so I can build on any space that has a dark gray, but when you're kind of branching out from there, it has to be connecting to what you have on there. But you have to terraform the land that's next to it to a dark gray land in order to build on it. And you have this little kind of map, or I guess kind of menu that shows you what you need to do. So if I was going to go from like the dark gray to the orange, I would have or the orange and change it to the dark gray. There was like three shovels in between those space, so then I would have to terraform that space three times. And depending on if I've upgraded my ability to do that, how many workers it would cost me, and so it was so neat. It was so neat. And then you have this whole like magic power thing going on as well, and then
Mhm.
you're upgrading those, and then you go from level 1 to level 2, and then when there's none left in level 1, you can upgrade from level 2 to level 3, and then what's in level 3 is what you can spend. So when you have your power tokens in the level 3, you can spend those to get more money or to get workers or to terraform land, or like there's different things you can spend them on. It was so good. It was amazing. And I'm so excited. Now we're going to Godfest at the end of the month. And I signed up to play the Gaia project, which is the space version of this game. So I'm excited to see how it compares. But that was Terra Mystica. I also played Blueprint. I purchased that one not too long ago, which is actually little dice, and then you kind of stack them up. And then depending on what the dice is touching and how it's set up, you would score your building that you've built with the dice, depending on what's in there. And it's like a dice drafting. So you roll the dice, you take one, then the number of pip might matter, the color of the dice might matter, and it depends on how you put everything together. And then a dice gets replaced every time. We also played Galaxy Trucker, which was amazing. It was so good. It's in real time, and you have all these tiles, and then you like flip a tile, and you're building your spaceship, and you add these pieces to it, and then you'll have like cannons that you can shoot from. You'll have like your boosters that you can put in the back, and you have like these different living bays that you will put down, and it'll give you astronauts and different things. And there's all a bunch of rules, like you have to have the right connectors touching and so on. And if you have connectors touching outside, well, those are like more weak portion of your ship. So the first portion, you build your ship, which is kind of fun on its own. Then the second one is you go through cards and different things happen, and basically you see how much of your ship survives at the end of the game, and then you get to score on different things that you've picked up, because you can pick up goods as you go, so you'll have cargo bays as well that you've built in your ship, and it was really neat. And then yesterday, because yesterday was Friday 13 here, we ended up playing Horrified. I hadn't played this before. It was neat. It was a simple game. Definitely next time we'll need to ramp up the difficulty level, because we did the first base game that they recommended just to learn the game, so it was fairly easy. We had the creature from the Black Lagoon and Dracula that we had to defeat, but it was an interesting one. You're kind of moving around trying to get villagers to safety, trying to accomplish certain tasks before you can defeat the monsters, but it was neat. And then, yeah, that's all I've played. I wish I was getting a little antsy this week. I hadn't really played anything till yesterday. I was like, okay, I'm craving games now. Now, what about you? What have you played?
I was started playing Chronicles of Crime again.
Oh,
I haven't had that out on the table forever. And so I pulled it out with Ashley. She went and bought one at Wizard's Loft. So I said, well, let's try one scenario. So we did that, just like the base game, but one of the, I think it was an easier scenario. So we did that. We won that one. And then I pulled out one with Cherry the next day, but we used my Noir expansion.
Oh, nice.
And that was pretty hard. We did not figure that one out. But it's kind of neat because it has some little different things you can use. You can use like force, where you're going to like, beat someone up if they don't tell you, kind of thing. And depending who you use force on, some will react like, okay, yeah, they'll just talk, and some will be like, don't even do that, I'm gonna go to the cops, so you have to be careful who you do that. You can bribe people.
Oh, wow.
So some security guards or whatever. It's funny because you're like, oh, should we bribe them? So we do. And then they're like, yeah, okay, go on.
Nice.
But then you start with some money at the beginning, right? And then, so you only have so much that you can use to bribe. So you have to be careful.
That's interesting.
Really, yeah. And then you can also break into some locations. Like if they're closed at the time, you need to get into them. There's one more thing now, I can't remember, but there's 4 like little unique things. So that was quite neat. I did try a solo variant of that, but not with Noir, but with the base game.
Nice.
I did figure it out, but I didn't score very well.
Well, that's the thing. It's not just finding out who the murderer is. It's like, okay, what was the motive? Who was the accomplice?
Right? Yeah.
Right? Like you got to get the details behind stuff. So nice.
Yeah. And another game I played was Elysium. I had bought this used. I've been looking for this for quite a while. I got that to the table. So it's a game based on the Greek gods, and you play. There's 5 families you include in the game, and it's just card play basically. And you have this little form in front of you, and on top you will play your cards, and then when you bring them down to your Elysium, that's how they'll score points at the end of the game. But they all kind of play off each other. It's quite neat. And you have these little pillars that you use to choose your actions. You have to have them there to choose the colors on the cards. And then once you choose a card, you have to put one away. So then you're only left with a couple colors. So that gives you less options to choose from. It's a really quick, neat game too. I also got Decorum to the table. This was a newer one. It's a cooperative game. So what you're trying to do, it's so weird. You have this little house in front of you, and it has all these paint colors and little decor items in it. And they only come in the 4 like main colors, like blue, green, yellow, red. Yes. And so each item or paint color will be one of those colors. And you will each have a card that describes what you need to happen in that house to fulfill your like dream. And so you both need to fulfill it. So on your turn, you can either change out a paint color, or you can.
Oh, because you're painting or decorating the same house.
Yes, you're decorating this house. So you can do this on each turn. Like I would either, I'm changing that paint color, and then you kind of ask your partner, or you can play up to 4. How do you guys feel about that? And some people will be like, oh, yeah, that's okay. No, I absolutely hate it. Because you can't say, I need all the rooms to be red. I need lamps in every room kind of thing. You just
Right.
can be, like, I don't like it. So there's 15 rounds in the first half of the game. And then if you haven't won by then you can announce one person can announce each of their, I think it's it starts with 4 like goals that they need to accomplish. And then you can kind of go from there for another 15 rounds. And then see if you can manage to accomplish it. It's quite neat because it's like deduction as well, because you can see what they're doing. I've only played it with 2 people, and you see, okay, well, they're taking everything out of there. And also, like, the lamps and all the fixtures have a type, like they're either antique or, odd and unusual. So there's like 4 different types, 4 different colors, and then 4 different things. So it's kind of neat, the combination, how each card wants certain things. And each scenario, like, it's like they had to build each scenario separate. So I don't know how they went about doing this, but you can play, with 4 people. So all 4 cards can work out. Like, it's not like there's never a solution. So it's quite neat. And it comes with so many scenarios, but then they're also going to open up an app that has like endless scenarios that you can play. So it's
that sounds cool, actually.
Yeah. And there's a little campaign that you can play and stuff. And they have characters at the beginning because it's so funny. You play as, like this princess who wants all this things, and then, her husband or her wife or whatever. But it's quite neat. Also played Great Western Trail.
Nice.
I love that one by Alexander Pfister, the big sprawling Western themed game where you're traveling along around Dell, building it as you go throughout the game, delivering cows to different cities in the United States. It's kind of neat because you have to move your train along at the top, and that deciphers which of the cities you can deliver to, and you want to build up your hand of cows as much uniqueness as you can, because then that gives you a higher amount that you can sell, more money, then you can buy more cowboys, more engineers, and build more buildings. There's so many different ways to earn points in that game. I love that one. Also played 4 Gardens for the first time.
Oh, that looked cool.
Yeah, it's really unique. It has this pagoda, I think that's what they call it, and that you put in the middle of the table, and it kind of spins around, and it has 4 levels, and on each side is like resources. So it's either 1, 2, 3, or 0. And on your turn, depending on the cards you have, you can turn these. And so as you turn them, whatever's in front of you is what you're going to get, depending on the card. It'll either have an arrow up or an arrow down. So you'll go from the bottom up to take the resources, or top down. But your little disc in front of you only holds 4 resources. So sometimes you're trying to get that middle resource, and you think, okay, I think I've got this. I'll turn it this way, and then you look, and you're like, oh, I have to take 3 stone before I can get what I need, and I've already got. And then once they're on there, then you can use another action to deliver them to your cards, and you're building these panoramas. It's quite neat.
Sounds cool.
It was a fun one. Yeah. And the one other thing I got to the table before I did sell it was my Everdell. I played it solo one time against Rugwart the Rat. And I can't wait to get my big collector's edition, but
that would be cool.
Let that go because I sold it to upgrade to the big box. So I won't see that now. Supposedly it's coming in October, but I don't know. The way shipping is going, I feel like it's going to be like...
you never tell.
Yeah. So
perfect.
Let's start at number 9. What is your number 9?
So actually, before I get into my number 9, I do have a few honorable mentions.
Yep.
I wanted to bring up Dice Hospital. Dice Hospital is amazing, or looks amazing, and you have the dice are your patients, and depending on how the pips are, so the closest to 1 they are, like the sicker they are, and you gotta heal them, and you move the dice so then the pip goes up, and then once they're sick, then they're at 6, then they're well enough that you can discharge them, but you're taking them to these different rooms in the hospital to help kind of heal them and all that stuff. And that game looks amazing, but I've never played it. So I'm sure it probably would have made my list, but I didn't play it yet. I own it now, but so I wanted to bring that up. Then I also wanted to bring up a couple of games that for the dice alone, they're so cool that I wanted to mention them. And the first one is Tiny Epic Western. And these ones, the dice are bullets. And you roll these bullets and they're like a little flat edge around on the side of the bullet. So where they land, you'll have the number on the top. But when you do a duel in that game, you would roll these 2 bullets and see who's the winner of the duel. But it looks so cool because they're in the shape of a bullet. So that was worth mentioning. And then the Tiny Epic Pirates, we upgraded the dice to the skull dice.
Oh, those are nice.
With like the green eyes or whatever. And it looks so neat. So I wanted to bring up those 2 dice just because they were so cool. So now getting into my number 9. For number 9, I have Pandemic Rapid Response. It was published in 2019, created by Kane Klenko, and it's published by Z-Man Games. So I played Pandemic the Cure with you, which is also a dice version of Pandemic. Now, Rapid Response, you're like on this board, it's almost like you're on a ship or something, or a train or something, and you got to go around from location to location, and you have 5 minutes, and you got to roll all the dice that you can, and then you roll as fast as you can. Okay, great, I'm spending this to move, and then you roll again. And okay, like, so you get the hectic feeling with it. The dice are super cool. The game is really neat, and then you're like, and then after the 5 minutes are done, it's like, okay, well, this is what I've accomplished, and it's like you kind of plan for the next person, and then now they take their 5 minutes and starts rolling the dice and then trying to get the next step. And you're trying to, like, it's a pandemic, you're trying to find cure for these disease and stuff, but you gotta it's like you get I don't know if it's toxic waste or something that you gotta clear out before that gets out of control, or different things like that. So I haven't played this in a little while. I really gotta get this back to the table, but it was really cool. So that's my number 9, Pandemic Rapid Response.
Awesome. Before I do my number 9, I have also an honorable mention. And how I picked my games. I picked them more on the medium weight because some of my heavier games with dice, I don't feel like it's, the absolute mechanic. It's part of a mechanic, or it's a mechanic of part of the game, which I do love. I have like my Grand Austria Hotel, Marco Polo, look, all those things, they require a few dice, but there's so many other mechanics in the game, so I didn't include those in my choices today. Okay. But the one honorable mention I have is the game Las Vegas. And I think you have Las Vegas Royale. Yeah. Right? I just have the Las Vegas, but I do have it with the expansion that was so very hard to find. So I chose this edition. And I just love this. We play this so often at Christmas with the family, because it plays up to, I think, 8 people, where you have your little casinos, and they're just little cardboard pieces. And then everybody has a set of dice, and you roll your dice, and you can place as many dice of the same number on one of the casinos. And then you'll kind of go around the table and do that. And whoever at the end of the round has the most dice on each casino will win the biggest bill that's at that casino. So you might have like a $70,000 and a $50,000 bill. Now, the second person would get the second largest bill. But if 2 people end up tying, they are kicked out. So you could be fighting for one and have 4 dice on one, and then another person all of a sudden gets 4 dice. And someone just sticks one little dice on there after that
and take it all.
Pulls the big bill. So it's so fun and just so simple. But that was my honorable mention. So my number 9, funny you should talk about Pandemic. Mine is Pandemic the Cure.
Nice.
Created in 2014 by Matt Leacock. We taught you this when you came that one day. Yeah. It's such a neat dice game. It's a very easy setup as well. You don't have the big map on it. You just have this little circle in front of you, and then you set these numbers around it, just with little circles on it, and that's where you're going to put your dice. So those are the locations that you're trying to cure the colors, because you need to cure 4 colors. And in the middle is called the cure center, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so you each have a pawn, and you'll start on one location, and then you'll have a set of unique dice, because you all have different player powers, just like in Pandemic. And depending what you roll, you can move to a location, like with a boat, you can move to one next to you, or you could, if you have an airplane, you could fly like anywhere on there. Then once you get there, if you have like a little syringe showing, you can cure a dice. So once you cure it, you will put it in the middle. Or you treat, not cure. You'll treat the dice and you'll put it in the middle. Then once they're in the middle, if you have this little, it's like a pill bottle kind of thing, which is a treat or a cure, you will take that out of the middle and you'll put your dice on top of that. And once you collect like 3 or 4 at the end of your turn, you can roll them all. And if you get over 11, I think it is, then you will have cured that color and it's done. And then you just need to cure the other colors. It's so neat, and it's quite hard because it is dice, so it's very luck based as well, but you can mitigate things with your own dice and your player powers. It's quite fun. I love it. And it's an easy travel game because you just need to take that dice, really, your cards, and then just those little tiny boards that pack away so small.
Yeah.
It's one I take on vacation quite a bit. And that's my number 9, Pandemic the Cure.
I was so impressed with that one. And definitely if I ever come across it, it's following me home.
Yep.
Wonderful. So my number 8 is Camel Up. It was published in 2018. It's created by Stefan Bogen, and it's an Eggert Spiel game. And with this one is you get the camels. You know what? It might be gimmicky because you have the pyramid that the dice are in, and you shake them, and then you push the button, and the dice comes out, and it'll match the color of the camel. And depending on what color comes out, that particular camel will move forward 1, 2, or 3 spaces. But then if the camel has any other camels on top of them, because they'll stack on top of each other, then any camels that's on top of them would move forward as well. And you're bidding on the leg of the race, and you're like, okay, well, I think in this round, this camel would win, so you take like tickets on them, but then you're also bidding on who you think the overall winner will be and who the overall loser will be. And then if you're the first person to bid correctly, you would get more money for your bid than the second person to bid correctly. Now, if you're bidding incorrectly, you're actually going to pay money. But it's so satisfying. It's such a simple game, really. But it's so neat to play. And then like the pyramid that you shake and drop the dice is so fun. So that's my number 8, Camel Up.
Awesome. My number 8 is Sushi Roll, made in 2019 by Phil Walker Harding. So this is a follow-up to his game Sushi Go, which is a card game. This is just using dice. And there's just adorable little dice with sushis, nigiris, and pudding on them. They're so neat. But what you do on your turn is you have this little belt or
conveyor belt.
Conveyor belt, yes, that you'll put your dice on. And you start with 6 dice, I believe. It depends how many players there are. And you each roll your dice, and then you're going to choose one from there, and you're going to put it on your board, and then you're going to pass this conveyor belt to your left, and everyone will get a new one and choose. But you're like by set collecting, so you're trying to get either, groups of nigiri, groups of pudding, and all kinds of things. You also have these little chopsticks that you can use, chopsticks and menus. And one of them will let you re-roll a dice. One of them will let you swap a dice, so you can take from another conveyor belt, and that's how you can kind of steal dice that you would choose, like over on the other player's little board. And it's just a super quick game, just like Sushi Go, but instead of the cards, you get these nice chunky dice, and they're just so cute and adorable. And the set collection is so fun. You have your little point chips. It's just a nice little tiny game, Sushi Go. I love it. My number 8.
That is a good one for sure. So my number 7 is The Godfather, A New Dawn. It's published in 2016. It was created by Jay Cormier and Sang-Fong Lim, and it's an IDW game. And this one is so cool. You have the map of New York City, and then you have like all the different neighborhood, I guess, and then the river that goes across the middle. And it's an area control dice game. So you would roll your dice, and depending on the numbers that you get, where you're going to send the dice to kind of show them more control of different areas. And you'll have like the big dice that you can bid, and it also has like your like the play order is controlled by that as well. We played this a couple of times. It was a while ago now, so I don't remember all the details, but I was so impressed with it. And everybody gets their little like a little shield that they hide the dice behind, because you roll it there and then you kind of decide what you're going to do. Nobody can see yet, because maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to go in this area, and turns out they are going there as well. So you kind of place your dice, and then there's these different spots in the river as well that you can send the dice to, and then it'll kind of activate a special ability also. It looks cool. It's neat. And then the dice with your as your workers and stuff is so cool. And it was a neat game, and I've really got to get this one played again. But that's my number 7, The Godfather, A New Dawn.
I've never heard of that one. I've played The Godfather Corleone's Empire, which is like an area control card game.
I've been, because I just bought that one and it looks amazing. Yeah.
It is. It's neat. But this one sounds really cool.
It really is.
Yeah. All right. My number 7 is Nocticluca by Shem Phillips, made in 2019. Now, Shem Phillips is the designer of all like the Raiders of the North series and the West series, Paladins, Architects, Viscounts. This game is quite different from all those other games. I love all his other games, but this one is just kind of a simple dice game. You have this big board in front of you with a pool in the middle, and then around it you have this little shore. And there's all these little sections that are sectioned off, and you just put all these dice out. You spread them all over this board on the water. And then you all have pawns, and you're going to place a pawn on one piece of shore, and then whoever in line that is, like you can choose different perspectives to choose. You will choose all the dice in that line, and you'll choose a number. So say I say 6. I will take all the 6s off there. And then what I'm trying to do is fulfill these little Nocticluca cards in front of me. And they will have different colors of dice on each card. So I will, it doesn't matter the numbers on the card, it's just the colors. So I will place, say, a blue, a green, and a purple. But I still need like a yellow there. So I have to wait till my next turn to fulfill that one. But as I'm choosing the dice, say I end up getting 4 or 5 dice, and I can only place 3 of them. Well, then I have to pass those dice to the next player on my left, and they get to choose one of them, and then they would pass, and so on. And if there was only 2 players, I would pass those 2 to the left. They would choose one, and then one would come back to me. But of course, I can't use it because my dice, I don't have any spots, so then it goes to that next person. So they would basically get all my extra dice. So you have to be careful choosing, because you don't want to have too many left over to give to the other player. And you do want to fill as many cards as you can, because as soon as you fill a card, there's also a color on the top of the card. You get to take a point chip. And it always starts with higher point chips on the top. So I would get to take, say, like a 9-point chip if I was the first one to complete red. And, the next player, say they were the first one to complete purple, they would get the 9. And then it just goes down from there. And you do this 2 rounds, I believe. So you'll completely put all your pawns out and then do one more complete round. And it's just whoever has the most points on your cards. And then you also have like one little secret objective that you're trying to accomplish as well. It's a really neat little game, but the dice are like beautiful colors, just like in Sagrada, like those.
Oh, yeah.
White. And not too big. They're just little ones, but it's very colorful, and it's such a nice, relaxing game. That's my number 7, Nocticluca.
Nocticluca. I haven't heard of that one. That sounds interesting. It's funny, like your number 7 is like all these colorful dice game. My number 7, The Godfather New Dawn, they're all dark, earthy tone dice.
All the beiges.
Almost like it's like you got maroon and you got like this, dark blue, and which is so thematic. But yeah, it's cool. Yeah. All right, so. My number 6 is Roll for the Galaxy. It was published in 2014. It's created by Wei Hua Yong and Thomas Lehman, and it was published by Rio Grande Game. And this one is so interesting because you all have, again, like this little shield where you hide everything, and you've got like a little board that has all the different symbols of what you can do. And it'll do different things depending on what you get. But so you'll roll and you pick a dice that you would use to activate an action, and then you assign all the other dice to the different action that they are. Now, you'll have some abilities, like you can spend something to change the dice to be actually a value of a different thing that you would activate, and so on. But you all do this behind your shield, and then you reveal it at the same time. Now, you've the dice that you place to activate the action, then you would mark on the main area, okay, well, this one's activated, and you see what all the other players have activated. So maybe you have a bunch of dice assigned to do a different action, but nobody activated that action, so they go away. You don't actually get to do them. And you have the different color dice depending on, like, and each dice will have like more of this type of action or more of this type of action, but they'll all have like a few variety of things. So be like, okay, well, I rolled all of these. I wanted to do these action. Nobody activated that. So that goes back into your cup, because you all get this little plastic cup you have. And as you build, because this is an engine building, as you build your base and you gain new dice, they go into your, what is it called? Like your, I guess your city area. It's called something. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But then you can spend money to bring those into your dice, so you have them to roll. And as you roll and you assign them and you do different things, then they would go back to your citizenry. I think that's what it's called. It's such a neat game. I really enjoy it. It has a bit of a steep learning curve, just learning the different icons and what they mean and how it all works. And this is one that, I remember we were playing this at FallCon, and I was teaching it, and one person was on the phone the entire time. And you're going over, okay, this is okay, we're starting. So like, okay. And they looked up, it's like, okay, so what do I do?
I knew nothing.
It's like, you know what? You're just going to lose. Roll your dice and hope for the best. It was like, oh, it's not one it's just a simple game to pick up and get going with. It has a little, I remember the first time playing, I'm like, okay, what? So I'm putting these dice down. I have no idea what's going on. But it's kind of halfway through the game. I'm like, oh, okay, I think I get it. But by that time, like, there was no hope. I'm not winning. I'm not winning this game. But it grows. Like, the more you play, it grows on you, and it's such a great game. So that was my number 6, Roll for the Galaxy.
I've only played this one once, and how we learned it was at a game cafe, a game night. We pulled out the box and learned it right there. So we spent our game night time learning this game. So it took us, I think, over an hour to figure it out and, figure out all these dice. Then we played it, and, we were all new, and none of us knew how to play. So we kind of were all so about it. But I would definitely have to give this one another shot. Those dice are so gorgeous.
They're cute. They're little.
And they're so little, but they all have these cute little symbols on them. Yeah, I definitely have to give that one another shot.
Yeah.
All right, that was your number 6.
Yeah.
My number 6 is Istanbul Dice, made by Rudiger Dorn in 2017. Now, this is a smaller version of his big game, Istanbul. This one is quite neat because you're just racing to get the most or a certain amount of rubies. So there's no scorekeeping, no scoreboard, nothing. All you're doing is doing different things to try and get these rubies. And it has a little board on it, and you place all these rubies on different areas. And there's different ways to get them. You can buy them if you get enough gold. You can buy them, and then as soon as you buy one, the next one will get more expensive. Oh. Or you can use resources of the same color. So say I've accumulated 4 green resources, I can take a ruby, but then the next one needs 5. So you make everything more expensive as soon as you take one. But what you're doing is you're rolling these dice, and they have all different kinds of resources on them. They have coins on them. They have all different things. And so you can choose how you want to use your dice, and you could either gain resources, gain coins, or you could use your dice to actually just gain rubies. If you happen to get, I think 4 of a different kind, 1 of each kind, then you can take a ruby, but then of course you need 5 different ones, or 4 and another one. But it just makes them more expensive. And the dice rolling is so neat because you can also buy these little income tiles. And so if you can get a hold of some of those at the beginning of your turn, you get all these little bonuses before you even roll your dice. So you can take coins, you can take like a free resource, and then by the time you roll your dice, you have enough to grab another ruby. It's a really quick game. I think you could play it in 20 minutes once you all learn. I think it goes up to 4 people, but it's so neat. I have just acquired the Istanbul big box, like the big game, and I haven't got that one to the table, but I'm excited to try the big version out, which is very similar, where you're just trying to race to get the rubies. There's no scorekeeping. You don't have to worry about points or anything, but it's still like a Euro game where you're acquiring things, and I don't know. I just love it. But this one is my number 6, Istanbul Dice.
Wonderful. I haven't played Istanbul Dice or Istanbul, so no, not yet.
I've always passed on it because I thought it was just a little bit maybe too light, but some of these lighter Euros, they're actually medium Euros. I'm really getting into them because they just can get to the table so often because they're so quick.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, for sure. Now, my number 5 is Quarriors. Quarriors was published in 2011. It was created by Mike Elliott and Eric Lang, and it's published by Whiz Kids. And this is such a neat game, and I love, love, love it. And it's almost like Dominion, the deck builder game, but with dice. Mm-hmm. And everybody has a bag, and you start with so many white dice and so many black dice, and there's all different kind of dice. But you have all these different set of dice that comes with it. Now, there's like a big box version, which my friend has, that has like a load more. So I have the base game. So it has probably like, I don't know, I would say 30 different sets of dice that you can play as. So you would pull out different monster or warrior dice that you would kind of pick from the card and be like, okay, well, I'm going to do this card and do this card. Like, so you pull out so many of those, and then you put the dice that's associated with it. So every time you play, you'll have different dice that you're playing with and different abilities for those dice as well. Then you'll pull out some spells. Those have different dice as well that you would set up. And then you have like your base dice that you would play. And then you have like the little water drop thing, and then that's your currency for purchasing more dice. And you would have your dice, you would pull out so many and then roll them, just like if you were doing a deck builder, but you roll them, so you never know what you're going to get from that dice. So some dice is more of one thing, some dice will have different things. Now, the base dice will have a few kind of teardrop, like the currency on it, so that allows you to go and purchase more dice to add to your bag, or it'll have a very basic monster or warrior. And then with that one is like, it costs so much to activate it and bring it into play. So it costs 1 teardrop to activate the monster, and then it goes into your battlefield area. And then it goes all the way around, and at each round you attack the people on either side of you. And then if your creature gets destroyed, then it kind of goes back into your discard, and it'll go back into your bag. But if at the beginning of your turn it's still in play, then you get to score points for them. So you want to have multiple monsters, ideally, that can kind of take the attacks to protect your bigger score ones. And then they all have a defense, they all have an attack, they all have like, some will have special abilities as well. So, and you're going around trying to have these monsters, I guess, in your battle area when you start to score them. And then you're purchasing bigger monsters, you're purchasing spells that'll kind of do different abilities that you can apply. And then it's great. Sometimes you have like, okay, this is so cool. I've got this translucent green dice, and he's such a cool, like, blobber type monster. And then it goes in your, didn't want money, I want my monster, right? Now you can have some dice that allows you to re-roll. So maybe you re-roll and you get money again. Like, so it has that Dominion feel where you're building up and then kind of adding all these, but because it's dice, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get the best version of that dice either, right? Like, there's that luck element to it too. It's so neat. It looks amazing with all the different dice, and they all have different symbols. I love this game. That's my number 5, Quarriors.
I haven't tried this one.
Oh, you have to.
Awesome. Your number 5. My number 5 is Sagrada, made in 2017 by Adrian Adamskew, Daryl Andrews, And yeah, just the two of them. So this is a beautiful game. It's got those beautiful, colorful dice, and you're just building a stained glass window. You all will you there's a bunch of dice in a bag, and you'll roll a certain amount each round depending on the players, and you'll each take a turn to choose one of the dice. And what you're doing is you have this little stained glass window in front of you that's blank, but it has certain objectives on the board that you have to like cover up, say a certain color or a certain number, and some of them are blank, so you can put anything there. But you're going to choose a dice, and you have to start on the outside of your little board, and you'll place a dice, and then the next player will choose, and you'll go around the table, and then the last player will choose one, and then it kind of snakes back around. So if you're first, you're going to get the first dice and the last dice. If you're last, you're going to get, say, the fourth or fifth dice, and then the next one right after. So it kind of evens out that way. But what you can't do is you can't place the same number beside each other, like orthogonally, or you can't place the same color. So it gets a little tricky that way, kind of Sudoku-y, you know.
Yeah,
you
for
have
sure.
to figure out, okay, this has to go there, that goes there, but I can't put that one there. But there is also some tools that you can use. So there's cards in front of you that you can use your, what are they called? Those little chips that you get.
Well, they're like little, I don't know, like
pieces.
glass
Tokens,
stones,
some
right?
sort. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'll place it on there, and you'll get to use that tool, which will let you kind of cheat and maybe move a dice around or place one that isn't allowed to go there or whatnot. And then you also have these objectives. You have personal objectives, and then there's some public objectives as well that everyone will try to accomplish and get more points. And then at the end of the game, it's another kind of quick game. You'll flip over this board, and you'll all score on top of there. So you have no idea who's winning. But the thing is, sometimes you get near the end, and you're like, oh, totally screwed myself. I can't place another dice here. Like, I've locked myself in, and it's interesting. Because there's been a few times where I've got to place all my dice, but there's a lot of times where I'm stuck having to chuck one because there's nowhere I can put it. It's just such a neat, peaceful game. My daughter loves this one, so we play this one. Sagrada, my number 5.
That is a neat puzzle game for sure. I got the expansion so we can play up to 6 players, which is then the whole family.
Well, and that expansion isn't just the 5-6 player. It also adds this little, they call it a private pool. So you have a whole other set of dice you get to choose from on your turn. Yeah. So you're going to choose one of those, like one of the from the public pool, and you get to choose one from your private pool. And there's ways to re-roll them too. It's really neat. I'm surprised they call that expansion the 5-6 player, but there's actually like a really cool module in it that they could have named it something else. Because I didn't buy mine to play with 5 or 6 players. I bought it for that specific.
Oh yeah, no, I did for the player count mostly, but yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great one. Now my number 4 is Champions of Midgard. This one was published in 2015. It's created by, I can't even read my own handwriting here, Ole Steinus, and it's a Grey Fox Games. So with this one, this one often gets compared to Lords of Waterdeep, just because it's a worker placement. You got the big map, it's Viking theme, and you're putting your little workers to kind of activate different things. But you're trying to become the Jarl of the village because he just passed away, so you're trying to gain as much glory as possible. And the best way for Vikings to gain glory is to kill monsters. So you'll recruit warriors, and these warriors are dice. So you'll have the red one, which has I think it's the arrows. You'll have the white one that's the spear, and then the black one that's the battle axe. And some of them are, like the white ones will have some that have shields, and the red ones will as well. Some will have like double attacks, and then the battle axe is all about the attacks. They'll have 1 or 2 attacks or blank sides, and you go and position yourself to kind of go and attack trolls or attack draugrs or attack the monsters across the ocean, and you'll gain glory for that, or you'll gain gold, or so victory points as well. So it's so neat. And it's neat because you're going into these battles, some of your warriors will die, so you go and recruit more warriors, so you bring in more dice onto your thing. And it's such a neat, fun, satisfying game to play. And that's my number 4, Champions of Midgard.
Yeah, you taught me that one when we were at that Calgary tabletop. That was neat. It's the first time I played that. Awesome. That was your number 4. My number 4 is Tumbletown, made in 2021 by Kevin Russ. Kevin Russ also made Calico, so he likes to make little puzzly games. This one is really neat because you're competing to become mayor, and you want to construct the best town. So you're using all these dice, and the colors in this game are brown, black, gray, and red. But it works. It's a Western theme, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you have all these cards in you that you can choose to buy, and there's different layers of them. And they each require certain dice that you need to take that card. So you'll choose a card that you're going to try and construct, and you'll put it in front of you, and then you'll roll your dice. You also get dice with the cards you choose, and depending what you roll in your dice, you can use for different things. So the card might need dice that can't be higher than a certain amount, or you have to have pairs on there, or only odd numbers or even numbers. And once you complete the card, because you will also be stacking them as well, some of them will want them 2 high or 3 high and all evens or whatnot. So once you complete a card, then you can move your construction into your town. You have this little blueprint in front of you, and you all have the same one, and they vary. They start out easy, and you can get harder. But it will have on it saying in one spot it needs like a single dice. It doesn't matter how high or how high the pips are. And then the one beside it might need something too high. So if your building was exact that, you could stick that on the part of your blueprint. And then at the end of the game, however many you filled up on your blueprint will give you extra points as well. Now the gold dice, those cards typically are all end game points. And some of the cards are really neat because they will score for as many cards as you have, like this little bush that's in the background, so you kind of have to search these cards. You're like, I need all those cards because then I'm going to score. And some of them will just give you points straight off, or they'll give you an ability to be able to re-roll your dice, or all these different things. It's a really neat, underrated game. You don't really hear many people talking about it, but it's so cool. You have to give it a try. That's my number 4, Tumbletown.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one. It does sound cool. Perfect. So my number 3 is Steampunk Ralley. It was published in 2015 by Oren Bishop, and it was published by Roxley. Now this one is so cool, and I've got the Tesla edition, so it has like a little medallion, like a metal medallion on the top, and then it has the metal gear and cogs, and the dice are gorgeous and all kind of see-through dice. And this is an engine building game. So you start with, you kind of draft cards, and the cards are different parts of this engine, and you're racing. You're all a bunch of different inventors, and then you're racing, and you're adding these pieces to your ship, and you're trying to make it through the race. And then these pieces will have different things on it that they do. So maybe it makes you move ahead, but it needs different type of fuel. And that's what the dices are. They're the fuel. So you have yellow, the red, and the blue. So blue's like the steam with the water. The red is fire, and the yellow is electricity. And you're kind of filling in these little portion of your ship to kind of fuel them to propel you forward into this race, or they'll do sometimes different things. But you also have to, you get clogged down with these dice, and you got to clear them out. Now, sometimes it'll be like, okay, if you put a dice here, now for every 2 pips on that dice, you get to move forward by 1. So it's ideal to put a 6 on there if you can, because then you would move 3 times, and it would give you more movement. But as you do that, now this is clogged up by a dice that has 6 on it, and to clear them out, you can spend the metal gear, the little cogs, to vent out these fuels out from your machine, but it only vents out 2 pips at a time. So be like, okay, well now it's a 4, but it's still clogging up. You don't have access to that space right now until you're able to kind of clear these dice off completely. Now, as you're going through this, and this is quite the contraption you're putting together, but you'll hit rough terrain as well. And when you hit some rough terrain, it kind of jars you around and you take damage, and you might be losing parts of your ship, and then you got pieces that are falling out. So then it's like, okay, well, you got to take, might as well take the one that's all clogged up with dice and then make that fall out and then start adding. It's an interesting game. It's cool. This is engine building that's actually engine building. You're
Literally,
building
yep.
your ship, and you, it's so interesting. Now I've bought Steampunk Ralley Fusion, which is a new version of this one that introduces a 4th dice, but I've never played it, so I don't know how it compares. But such an amazing game. That's my number 3, Steampunk Rally.
Awesome. You'll like the Fusion. I played the Fusion as a prototype a couple years ago at a convention, and
Nice.
I just did horrible. I kept losing my engine. I don't know what I was doing wrong, and then we played it again at Calgary Tabletop, the full version of it, and it was really neat. And now I'm trying to think what those clear dice do. It was so interesting what they do, but I can't remember what it was. But you'll like it. I did much better this time.
That's good.
I may have even won. I don't remember. But it's really neat how it all works. I don't even think I lost engines this time. Maybe we're
Nice.
playing wrong. I don't know. But that was your number 3.
That's right.
My number 3 is Dice Hospital. Made by
Nice.
Stan Kordonsky, in 2018. Oh, and Mike Ned. This is such a cool game. Your dice are your patients. There it is right there.
Yeah.
Mine's on my shelf this way. But it's so fun. Your dice are your patients, and once they get down to 1, if you can't heal them past 1, they die and they go to the
morgue.
not the morgue. The morgue. There's a little one of your tiles is a morgue. And that's what I do in my game. I always just try to prevent any death. I don't know that it's the greatest strategy, but it's so neat because on your turn you have to choose first a improvement. So you're either going to choose another they're hexagon tiles, which will give you a space to put more dice in your in your hospital to try and heal them up, or you can choose a person who will help you, and they'll give you another person who can help you, like another worker, because you start with 3 nurses that can treat these patients. And it's so neat because once you can treat them to 6 and then treat them one more time, then they are, what do you call it when someone is released from the hospital? Discharged.
Yeah.
Then you discharge them, and that's how you get the points for them. It's so puzzly because you're trying to build the best, wisest hospital that will treat as many patients as you can wisely, because some of these tiles will let you treat 3 green, but they have to be like numbered 1, 2, 3, or they have to be all the same number, and then you can treat them all 3 at once with 1 person. And that's really cool because typically only one of the workers can treat 1 person. So it's neat. You have all these dice there. And then after you choose your improvements, then you're going to choose a little ambulance that has 3 dice on it. So you pull this little ambulance over, and it always has 3 in the middle. Maybe that's just a 2-player game. There's probably more players, and it'll start 1, 2, 3. The first ambulance will have the real sick people, like the 1s, 2s, and 3s, and then the next one will be middle, and then the next one will be the higher amount. So you could choose, to take the easier one with all the 4s, 5s, and 6s. But if you choose the lower one, then you get this little blood bag, and that gives you 1 whole heal up. So you kind of have to figure out, do I take that so I can get the little blood bag, because then I can just heal 1 dice, 1 pip? Or do I take the easy route, because I have all these 2s and 3s in my hospital, so I don't want another bunch of 2s and 3s. It's really neat little puzzly game. And the production company has come out with another one called Dice Theme Park, which
Oh.
I'm anxiously waiting for my Kickstarter to arrive. So it'll be very similar, only your guests are going to be the dice, right? And you want them to have the most fun, I'm thinking. I don't actually know the gameplay, but it's so neat. You're going to love your Dice Hospital.
I can't wait to play it. Yeah. Wonderful. So my number 2 is Dice Throne. I'm including season 1, season 2, and adventure all in this one category here. So the first one was published in 2018. It's created by Nate Chatelier and Manny Tremblay, and it's published by Roxley. And this one is so cool. So you have each season has 8 different characters that you can play as. Each character has their own set of cards and unique custom dice, and they'll have different symbols on them as well as 1 to 6. And what you do is it's kind of Yahtzee battle style. So you roll the dice, you can re-roll up to 3 times, and you're trying to create this combination that's going to activate one of your attack. And depending on what you activate, what it does, but then depending on who you are, the type of actions you have and the type of attack that you can do. And so playing the different characters kind of changes it up all the time. Then you also have the Dice Throne Adventure, where, because with Dice Throne Season 1 and Season 2, it's, you're against each other. So it's definitely a competitive game where you're attacking each other. Last man standing's the winner. With adventure, it turns it into a dungeon crawl, and you basically take those characters and you go into this dungeon and you're exploring and coming across monsters, and you're doing your dice rolling, but you're battling these monsters, and it's actually now a cooperative game, and it's so cool. That's my number 2, Dice Throne.
Yeah, you love this game.
I really do.
A lot.
I do.
All right, my number 2 is Nations Dice, made by Rustin Hackinson in 2014. So this is the smaller version of the game Nations, which I have never played, but it's a big civilization game. I had asked you about, I think last week when you were talking about some civ game that you had.
No, I haven't played Nation yet.
If you play Nations, but this is the dice game. So this is a smaller version, and it only takes 10 to 15 minutes per player. So, if you're 2 players, it's a half-hour game, but it's so neat. So you have all these different types of dice, and you start with some white dice, and you start with a country. Say you're Greece, you have like 3 or 4 white dice that you start with, and they are placed on each one of the little blocks on your board. You roll those dice, and what you'll get with them is you'll get either food or gold or swords, and then you can use those dice to buy other little tiles that you can place on your board. Now you may buy a tile that has a blue dice, and so you'll take that tile and you'll place it on one of the ones you already have, so on one of your white dice. So you'll have that white dice up, but you can give one you've already spent this turn, because your spent dice go on the top of your board, and then you'll get a blue dice and you'll get to roll that your turn. So you kind of will get to use if you can do it smartly, you can use your white dice, but then buy more, pay those ones, and then re-roll again. It's a little engine builder. It's really neat, because then at the end of the round, you don't have to have so much food, but if you do, there's certain requirements at the end of each round that you'll get points for if you have so much food or so many swords, and whoever has the most swords at the end of the round gets to go first, which is nice because then you get first crack at all those tiles. And the tile board is quite neat because it's a 3-tier board, and the first one will cost 1, and the second one 2, and the second one 3. And most of them you can either pay by gold or swords. And you also have, I think they're called, what do they call them? They're your player power, kind of. You can only have one of those, and those will give you kind of like a little ability, and give you points at the end of the game as well. And then you can build all these little colonies that will give you big points at the end, or statues. And then you need stone, so you need some of those blue dice to build them. It's just such an easy flowing, quick game, but it feels like such a cool little civilization builder in, like less than half an hour with 2 people. And the dice, there's so many different dice that you can buy. You can buy some more yellow dice, which gives you lots of gold so that you can buy big expensive things. It's so neat. You're gonna have to try this one.
Oh yeah, sounds
My
good.
number 2. Yeah.
Nice. So my number 1 is Ashes Rise of the Phoenix Born. This game is gorgeous. I love it. And unfortunately, I'm the only one who loves it in my household. So it doesn't get played nearly enough, like hardly ever at all. But you have the different characters. I think the base game comes with 6 different characters, and then you can buy extra characters. And at one point, this game was kind of losing popularity a little bit. So you could buy like extra characters for $2. And so I've got a few of them. Now they've just republished it as Ashes Reborn, Rise of the Phoenix Born. And it's like revamped. It's a red box now instead of a white box, but the gameplay is pretty much the same. They've tweaked a few things a little bit. But so you have your character as the Phoenix Born, and the other player has as well their own Phoenix Born. And you have your own custom deck of card. And you'll have allies, you'll have items, you'll have different things, you'll have spells that you can add into your spell book. But then you'll have creatures that you can conjure from activating these spells. But everything in this game, everything gets activated by the dice. And you have these custom, like there's 2 sets of dice per each character. So maybe you have like the blue dice that has like a little frog symbol on it, or you'll have these different dice. So, and you roll your dice. So there's 3 levels of symbol. You have the basic one that's kind of like a triangle, and that's your basic action, basically. Then you have like a middle level that the dice can roll into, or you have like the top one, and the top level can be used as a level 2 or level 3 as well. So having the most top level rolled is to your benefit, because then you can utilize it for anything. So every time it's like, okay, well, I'm going to play this ally and I'm going to add him to my battlefield, and on that card it's going to indicate, well, I need to spend 1 blue dice and 1 basic dice. So then you kind of move those dice over, and you keep going and taking turn of doing these actions. So you got a main action and a kind of secondary action that you can do, but there's different things that you can do, and you can keep going as long as you have the dice that you can spend to activate them. And then, some of it is, okay, well, I'm going to attack you. And then maybe you're attacking the monsters that's been conjured, or maybe you're attacking the allies, or maybe you're attacking directly the Phoenix Born. And the goal is to defeat the other Phoenix Born. It's beautiful. It's so much fun. I love, love, love this game. And I love that the whole dice mechanism that activates everything. That's amazing as well. So that's my number 1, Ashes, Rise of the Phoenix Born.
Awesome. My number 1, I've talked about lots. Minor, made in 2021 by Joshua Daboni and Mikola Ristiki. This one is another simple game. You just have a whole bunch of dice that get rolled. Well, actually, they don't get rolled. They just get put on this mountain that is set up in front of everyone, and you just choose your dice off this mountain. On your turn, you'll take 1 off the top. But if you happen to have a beer dice, you can roll it to another player, and they get it. And then you get to take 2 dice, and you can take from the top or the sides. And what you're doing with these dice is you're building up all kinds of things. You are trying to make runs with the white dice, and they have to start at 1 and go up to 5. And you'll try to do as many of those as you can. You might try and get some shovels or some shields, because then if you take some dragons or the dynamite explosions, they're called, then you will, however many of those you have, depending on the shovels and the shields, they will multiply in points. Now, if you don't have the shovels and shields, those will all be negative points, so you really need those before you take any of the others. There's also just gold. I think they're just called treasures.
Yeah.
And they're just straight points. And then you have some dice that are magic. So they just have little circles on them. But they will allow you to re-roll some of the dice that you have at the end of the... Because some of the dice you take, they won't be helpful. Or you might have all these dragons and no shields, and you need to get a shield going. You can also get beers on each of the dice. All different colored dice will have the beers. There's also these little treasure chests that will let you keep dice from round to round. Because at the end of the round, you will take all your dice, re-roll it, and throw it in front of you, and those will be added to your next round because it's played over 3 rounds. It's such a fun game. So quick, again, but you just roll dice and hope for the best. You try to make the right decisions, and it plays so fast. I'd say 20 minutes you can get a game in that easy. That's my number 1, Dice Miner.
That is a great choice. It's like such a cool, because dice drafting, but the whole setup with the board and how they all fall into this mountain and you're pulling off, and then it makes more dice available going forward. Like, it's so clever.
I just did not think that I would like this game at all. Like, just even talking about it might not sound intriguing, but you really got to give it a try. It's a cool game.
It's neat. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that was all our 9 top dice games. Now, next week, we are going to talk about our small box, big punch games. So games that come in, like a square box, max, kind of, I don't have one in front of me.
We're kind of keeping Targi size and smaller.
Yeah, Targi size, Seven Wonders Duel, that kind of size box or under, where you pull that box out and you open up this game and there's just so much game in there. There's a lot of 2-player games where it's just kind of a simple little game, but some of these games have so much game in them, and there's a lot of them, I would say. So that's for next week. Mm-hmm. Now, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, Melanie, where can they find you?
On Facebook, my Facebook page is Disbury and Area is playing all the games. I'm also on Instagram as BoardGame_Mama, and my YouTube channel is BoardGame Mama. And how about you, Carly? Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram at Board Game Specialist, all one word, and I have a Facebook page, Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. So that is it for this week. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Yes. Bye, everybody.